Hi everyone and welcome to today's video. This is a B1 level science lesson, and today we're going to be talking about generating a hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? And what is the purpose of forming a hypothesis in a science experiment? A hypothesis can be written using the if-then structure. So if plants get water and sunlight, then they will grow. So if is followed by the independent variable, and then is followed by the expected outcome or effect on the dependent variable. So complete these sentences to create a hypothesis. If a ball, if the weight of a ball increases, then the distance it travels when you throw it will decrease. If you give salt water to a plant, then it will die, perhaps. If you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, then it will boil. If you eat lots of sugar before going to bed, then you will be unable to sleep. And if you put ice in a cup with warm water, then the ice will melt. So create some more hypotheses using the if-then structure. And it's if plus the subject plus the verb, then plus the subject plus will plus the verb. So if I study for my exam, I will get a better grade. If we wash our hands frequently during flu season, then we will be less likely to get sick. If tomato plants receive no sunlight, then they will die. If you use bug spray, then you will be less likely to get mosquito bites. And if you mix baking soda and vinegar, then there will be a reaction. So now you're going to match the beginning and the ending to form a hypothesis. And you can pause the video, try this on your own, and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So people who wear sunscreen are less likely to develop skin cancer. If birds are fed a high protein diet, then they will lay more eggs. If two magnets with opposite polarities are brought near each other, then they will attract each other. If a ball is thrown with greater force, then it will travel a greater distance. If a higher concentration of salt is added to water, then the boiling point of the water will increase. And let's see, plant growth will not be affected if water is mixed with soap. So we can write a hypothesis as a fact instead of a conditional statement. For example, students who eat breakfast will perform better on a math exam than students who do not eat breakfast. So practice by making some hypothesis, and your answers will vary, but write these as statements instead of if-then statements. And when we write a hypothesis, we include a statement that we think is true and a reason or clause that we can test. So for example, if I drop a ball from a higher height, then it will bounce higher because the ball will gain more potential energy from the higher drop. So now you're going to create the hypotheses using the missing words. So if I push a toy car harder, then it will go faster because more force will make the car move with greater speed. If I mix oil and water together, they will separate because oil and water don't mix due to their different properties. If I mix baking soda and vinegar, then it will create bubbles because the chemical reaction between them releases carbon dioxide gas. And if I blow air on a wet spot, then it will dry faster because the moving air helps to evaporate the water. So now we're going to read the text, and you'll write two hypotheses based on the study. In 1954, researchers at University of Michigan conducted a research project that looked at the impact of different teaching styles on student achievement and attitudes on a large first-year psychology class. All students were divided into two groups. Group A had traditional lectures, and Group B had tutorials and discussions. At the end of the semester, two differences were noticed. Students in Group A got higher final scores than students in Group B. Also, the teacher in the lecture class got a higher rating than by students than the teacher in the other group. But researchers followed the students after the first year. None of the students in the lecture class decided to major in psychology, but 14 of the students from the tutorial and discussion class decided to major in technology. So, see if you can write two hypotheses based on this study. So, some example answers, and your answer could be different. There could be more than one correct answer, but students who take traditional lectures will get higher test scores than those who take classes consisting of tutorials and discussions. Students who take classes consisting of tutorials and discussions will be more likely to continue studying psychology in the future. So those are a couple of example hypotheses. The null hypothesis of an experiment always predicts that there will be no effect or relationship between the variables. So, for example, the research question: what effect does daily use of social media have on the attention span of 16-year-olds? The hypothesis would be the more time spent on social media, the shorter the attention span in 16-year-olds. And the null hypothesis: there is no relationship between social media use and the attention span of 16-year-olds. What effect does eating sugar before bed have on whether a person has a dream? If a person consumes a large amount of sugar in the hour or two before going to sleep, they will experience more unusual dreams. Here you could say there is no relationship between the amount of sugar consumed before sleep and the amount of unusual or the number of unusual dreams. And what effect does sleeping 8 hours or more each night have on a person's memory compared to people who sleep less than 5 hours? Hypothesis: people who sleep for more than 8 hours are more likely to remember information in the short term than people who sleep less than 5 hours. There is no relationship between the amount of sleep a person gets and their short term memory. All right, so for each of these, read the question and create a hypothesis. Try this on your own and then restart when you're ready to check your answers. So, doing more homework leads to higher test scores. People run faster on cement than on grass. Students who start school later will achieve higher test scores. Bright colors make people feel happier than dark colors. Bacteria grows more quickly at 20 degrees than at 2 degrees. Water containing sugar freezes at a lower temperature than pure water. Cats sleep for more time in a 24-hour period on average than dogs do. And the larger the parachute, the more time it takes for an item to fall to the ground. So those are just some possible hypotheses. You might have something different. Now, a hypothesis needs to be testable. So, dogs are better than cats. Can this statement be tested? No, because it's unclear what better means. People who own dogs have higher levels of physical fitness than people who own cats. So, can this statement be tested? Yes, it can. So, are the statements below testable? Cleaning products with baking soda will kill more bacteria than cleaning products without baking soda. So, yes, that is testable. Decreasing the amount of salt in a diet will decrease blood pressure in adults. That's also testable. Riding a bicycle is better than running. So, no, because again, how do we define better? Life exists on other planets that we will never be able to see. That's no, because if you cannot observe something, it's not testable. So read the scenario and write a hypothesis. So first we'll look at the vocabulary. To skip is to not do something. Participant is someone who takes part in an experiment. Recall is to remember something that was learned or experienced in the past. Learning task, an activity or assignment that helps someone learn or understand something. Background noise, sounds that can be heard in the background, often caused by other people or things in the environment. So, scenario one, a group of students is conducting a science experiment to investigate the effect of eating breakfast on student test scores. They plan to measure student scores on a series of tests after eating breakfast and after skipping breakfast. So, hypothesis is that eating breakfast will increase student test scores. Scenario two, a researcher is interested in the relationship between sleep and memory. They plan to measure the amount of sleep that participants get and their ability to remember information after a learning task. So, um, getting 8 hours of sleep will increase short term memory. Could be one possible answer. A group of students is interested in the effect of background noise on reading comprehension. They plan to measure reading comprehension scores with different levels of background noise. So, a hypothesis could be higher levels of background noise decrease participants' reading comprehension scores. A researcher wants to investigate the relationship between screen time and mental health in adolescents. They plan to measure the amount of time participants spend on their screens each day and determine their levels of anxiety and depression. Again, the vocabulary an adolescent is a young person who is between being a child and an adult. Screens the surface on a phone, computer, or TV. And to drop is to let something fall from your hand. So here, a possible hypothesis would be increasing screen time results in higher anxiety and depression in adolescence. And scenario five, a group of students wants to learn whether the weight of an object affects the speed that it falls. They plan to drop objects that are the same shape but different weights from the same height and determine the speed that they fall. So a hypothesis could be heavier objects fall faster when dropped from the same height. So when we do science experiments, we make predictions. So I think X will happen because it might, it may, or it could, and it is possible that. So use the language above to make predictions about whether each of the objects on the list will sink or float. All right, now we're going to read this final text about theories and then answer the questions. So, after a hypothesis has been tested and found to be correct, a theory can be formed. Theories have been tested many times and have a lot of evidence. They allow us to understand and make predictions about the natural world. For example, a hypothesis might state if animals adapt to fit their environments, then birds that live on islands with lots of seeds to eat will have differently shaped beaks than birds that live on islands with lots of insects to eat. After testing many hypotheses like these, Charles Darwin developed the theory of evolution by natural selection. So, what is a theory? How is it different from a hypothesis? How did Darwin develop the theory of evolution by natural selection? And do you know of any other theories? So, take a few moments, think about those, and then you can restart when you're ready to check your answers. So, a theory is a hypothesis that has been tested and found to be correct. How is it different from a hypothesis? Well, a theory is different from a hypothesis because it has been tested, found to be correct, and is supported by a lot of evidence. Number three, Charles Darwin developed the theory of evolution by natural selection by testing many hypotheses around the natural world. And there are other theories. Einstein's theory of relativity is probably the most famous one, but you might know of some others. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Please like, subscribe, share. And if you have any questions, leave those for me in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.